Addison Rae's kit has been revealed, so today we're going to take a dive into that and see what makes her good, because guess what? Yes, she is a good unit. Now, she is given to you for free, but you have to spend FFVIIR in order to max her, so we still have to make that decision on whether or not she's worth building. So we'll go through all the pros and cons, we'll talk about AI, we'll talk about a little bit about equipment, her vision card, and we'll do an abridged version of the checklists that I usually do with my graphics, all that kind of stuff and more. And so let's get into it. All right, let's start by talking about Addison's TMR, which is decent. It's an accessory. There's no agility on it, but it has an interesting TMR skill, which gives some utility of Dispel Haste, but also some crit rate up to power up your units. And for Addison specifically, she wants that crit rate up if you're going Blade Soul sub and you specifically want to use Slate Wiper to have a Dispel on her kit. But that is, while it's a long-range move, it has AoE and everything, the chance to crit is still kind of iffy with her because she has no innate crit rate, but it is, you know, an interesting application of her kit. It's also a low damage move, so she might not always use it, especially because it's a slash move and she doesn't have any slash pen. So I really don't think that's an optimal build for her. So really, we're not worried about using her own TMR. Instead, you're going to be looking at using TMRs that give haste, like Bradley's TMR, Sorrow's TMR, or maybe some other ones that you might want to look into, but we can talk about that later. Otherwise, the big note here is that we can see that she gets some decreased chance of being targeted on her actual master ability, which is very good. All right, we can carry on and talk about her stats, and they're pretty decent. So I'm going to scroll down to the bottom here. We're looking at the stats, total stat, no dream there. And I want to make one quick note that this HP is actually incorrect. This HP is not counting her master ability, which has 10% HP up for light allies, including herself, but also 10% HP up for herself. So her actual HP is around 4,400, which is a lot better than 3,688. So she has good HP for a caster. She's got great magic stat. She has very nice agility at 67. Otherwise, her accuracy is not looking so good. It's at about 154% before you put anything on. That's at a low range. That's not what we've typically been seeing lately. So she does not have good accuracy outside of her 100% hit attack that she has. And then she has decent resist, specifically 30% slash resist, which is a fantastic spot to actually build from. You get that last 10% there to get to 30 from her Dream upgrade or her Transcendence upgrade. And then 15% to magic, 15% to missile, and then she's weak to strike and to pierce. So a couple weaknesses, but some really good strengths here, some very good positives that she has. All around 100 cost stat worthy, definitely looking fine here. All right, next we're going to take a look at some notes which I've written here, and we're going to start off with the AI test, which I have fully ripped off from Ready Player Will. I am a thief. I don't care. I'll do whatever it takes to make it to the top, so suck it, Will. Here we go. So first up, we have Barrier Bop. That's going to be the skill that she uses before anything else. Specifically, though, she won't use it again if her barrier is intact. So if her barrier has not been popped, has not been broken, whatever it is, then she will not use this again, which means she'll then go to Soul Regram. Now, this is the skill that gives courage to your ally, gives a self-heal to your ally, and then it also gives the nullify, 100% hit skill to your ally. And the thing about this is that she can cast it on her allies, she can cast it on herself. So what we learned from Will is a few things. First of all, he shared with us that if you put this on an ally that already has a self-heal, it's going to pop one of their self-heals. It won't do both at once. So for example, with Warrior of Light in his video, Warrior of Light used his own self-heal at a certain base level. And then the next time he went below a certain level, he used Addison's heal. So it's really, really potent, especially because the courage is there as well. So this is an absolutely nuts skill. But what Will also learned was that she will use it really, really easily, and that because she can't barrier bop twice, you need to have other skills. So he had Sword Song Formation from the Blade Soul sub. I don't know if he had the TMR on. I don't think so, because I think it's a single target that he was using. But you basically want to find something that's higher priority than Soul Regram, or really what you're going to find out is that she'll use it twice in one battle, and you won't have it for guild battle too. It means for defenses, it's going to be finicky to set up. you won't be able to count on that through multiple fights and guild battles. So just something to keep in mind. It's such a powerful skill. You only get the 2 uses though, and then otherwise, yeah, she's going to use her other skills. So if anybody has found anything different from this, let us know in the comments. But otherwise, this is coming from Ready Player Will. So I'm going to take the credit if he's right. And we'll just throw some blame if if there's anything wrong here. Next up, we're going to do our checklist that we usually do, but I have them in text form, so I've typed them up here. And we'll start off with damage. So some of the things that Addison brings is that she's got a high magic stat. She does have access to a spirit break. Her magic attack penetration is 40% innate, 60% with a weapon, or 50% with trust stones. And then she has 40 to 80% spirit penetration innate, and then can go up to 100% or 90% with a weapon or trust stones. So she's in a really good spot for penetrations, for breaking spirit, for a high magic stat. It's all looking very good. And from what we've seen from people's videos, she can do a lot of damage. She also has access to chaining on both her main kit, and also her limit burst. And she has multiple attack types, although she doesn't have slash pen. So I really don't rate her slash attacks too highly, although against the right target, obviously those can do pretty well. We have to mention there's a few things that she is missing. So she doesn't have any sort of imperils, elemental, or attack type like magic attack. She can't deal with shell. She doesn't, I know she can be built for crit rate, but she doesn't have crit damage either. So it's not really a strength of hers. And then she doesn't have those other types of things like magic damage up or convert TP to damage. Doesn't really matter because she still has pretty good damage and can chain with your light units. So that's all really good to see. Next up, we can scroll down here and talk a little bit about durability. So she, like we said, she does have good HP, some decent resistances, and she has that attack barrier. So if she's coming up against people without a barrier break, she's going to be in good spot. She also has access to protect, which is one of the best buffs in the game right now and has been for a long time. If they don't have protect dispel, then that is just a straight 25% damage from physical attacks that you're not taking. She also has reflex, both for physical and for magical, and she has that decreased chance of being targeted. Now, if she actually uses Soul Regram on herself, she'll also have courage and the self-heal, but other than that, she's missing a lot of things. So there's no AoE resist, for example, except for on her vision card. So if you don't have that on main slot, she really doesn't have a lot. She has like 2 spirits, not a big deal, but no defense, no single target resist, and then none of this other stuff here. Basically, it leads me to say is that she's not the bulkiest unit in the world. I think she will die pretty easily, but she does have the hate down. And if you run her with a tank like Wall or Engelbert or King Mont or whoever else that you're going to be running her with, then I think she's going to be in a fine spot to survive. But still, if you need her to use Soul Regram on herself, then she can really up her survivability by quite a bit, as long as they don't have courage removal. We can then move on to her utility, and she's got a few things, multiple barrier breaks, both on her main job and then also on the Blade Soul sub. She has courage removal, although I don't love it because it's low range and it's low damage, so it's not likely she'll use it, although there are times where she might finish somebody off and then punch through their courage. She also has counter chance down 100%, but it's on her VC ability, so again, you have to build it, and you have to have it in the sub or the main slot. And then she has a full dispel, but I really don't count this too much. And the reason is because it's on the critical hits only. I think that's a pretty big build. And like I said, you don't have penetration. It's a small damage move. It's not dependable. She does have 4 uses of a 100% hit attack. Her AP management is okay because she starts with 50% of her max AP. However, with her tendency to not be able to use her TP skills, if she attacks too much, then you might get into a dangerous spot. So something to keep in mind. And then otherwise for status effects, she has one big one. Her limit burst will have a 67% base chance to slow people. So if you're 97 faith, they're 97 faith, that's almost a 100% chance for you to actually hit with a slow, and you can hit multiple people, and you hit the chain count goes up. They're slowed. People can come in and chain. It's a really cool novelty that you can try out for one battle because it's the one use from the guild battle. Otherwise, she doesn't have re-raise removal or healing power down, any of that kind of stuff. Her accuracy is about 154%, which I said, and she doesn't have access to CT up or haste. But she can lower people's CT if you use her own sub job, but I don't think you'll be using that one, most likely because you want the extra buff that you get from her sub job. We can also talk about her cons, and I only have 3 because she is a good unit. She doesn't have a lot of buffs and she runs out of them fast, so that's definitely a bit of a con. Her courage removal, like I said, is low damage and low range, and she should be fairly squishy unless she uses soul regram on herself. So just means she's a very strong unit that you have to test her AI and properly tune her for your compositions. You can't just plug her in. She's not strong enough to do it on her own, but she has a lot of really good stuff that she brings to your team, and she has the ability to really hit people for a high amount of damage. So by no means is she a bad character. These are just little things that I've picked out that I thought were a few weaknesses of her. That brings us back to her kit, and we're just going to do a very quick scan here. And so when we look at the passives, I think that the main thing is obviously you're using the Cosmetic Magi, and then at that point you can either use the Blade Soul lore to get more agility, even more Spirit Pen. I mean, the Red Mage lore is also really good for more damage and initial AP up, and there's some defensive options as well. I mean, really depends on what you're building for, but I think the most typical build will be your Cosmetic Magi with the Blade Soul or the Red Mage lore, one of the two. By the way, but earlier I said that she did not have any increased magic damage. She actually does. I completely forgot about the Red Mage lore buff, so that's totally my fault, and I apologize for that. As for counters, we're just definitely using Switch Step. It's the best one. It's Reflex. It's the best counter in the game. You should just put that on her. And then when we go down to her main kit, we can see that she's got these skills. So her Chill Out is the really low range, Courage Dispel. She has a slightly higher range with Chaining for Spirit Decrease, which is actually very good medium damage, super good for PvE. And then her Go Viral is going to be the Barrier Break and 100% hit chance in one. Very strong skill. We've already talked about her Barrier Bob, but we did not talk about the Sorceress Shuffle, which has an AoE Imperil. So AoE resist down 30%. This is actually a very strong attack. I should have mentioned this for her damage. It enables the rest of your team, regardless of their attack type, if they're using AoE attacks. And right now, stacking AoE resistance is just so popular. I mean, it's always been an important thing, but right now it's very important. I used to get away with just having a little bit. Now I'm stacking maximum AoE resistance in my fights to be able to survive against Bradley and Sephiroth, etc. And so this is a very strong skill that also has an attack and magic break once they get that AoE resistance Imperil. And then we have Soul Regram, which we've talked about already. Her sub job, nothing really too important here. Maybe a manual skill that you might use, and then that CT down, but it's just such a low range that I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of Take It Slow. The Blade Soul is interesting, although again, this buff doesn't even really do that much for her if you're running against people that have high slash resist. But what you do get here is another Barrier Break, a little bit more range with a few things. But really, I actually like the Red Mage sub specifically because of Jamming Thrust, which is a very high range move that also has a range height of 2, so very versatile for hitting people from far away and they're higher up than you, so map dependent, but also the ability to increase spirit for yourself. It's all really nice, but really she didn't get a ton of great stuff from her sub jobs. Like if she had Fast Cast, that would have been insane. If she had the HP barrier against magic attacks, that would have been insane, but what are you going to do? And then we have Living and Loving It, which is our big ol' AoE 3 chain that also has the 67% chance to base chance to slow, but also 69 AP cost. Roki, what are we doing here? It's kind of funny. So that's where you might see her run out of AP, although I'm actually not too worried about it. Let's talk about her vision card very quickly because it does give her some stuff, 20% magic, 10 AoE resistance. And then the unit effect is really pretty terrible, 5% HP, and that's it. Like, unless you're one of these other units, you just get 5% HP. So kind of disappointing considering they're making us pull for it. I just don't really know what happened there with that. But then we get this unit ability, the Addison Rae. Like I said, it's a decent skill. It's actually got a range height 2 as well, and has that reduced counter chance 100. So really strong skill. Changes to the element of your unit and has a XL modifier. The party effects here are very good. So 24% magic resistance, 40% magic, and then reaction block rate. All 3 of those are banger effects that I love. And that magic resistance is actually really strong right now, considering there are some magic units that are being used on dark teams, on fire teams. and that a lot of units don't have innately high magic resistance. So if you're running this, it's definitely going to come in handy. So I would get this for her for sure. I would get this also if you're running glove units and you want to support them. I would not necessarily get this for any other reason, unless again, if you're a light player. And the reason is that this will work for Sylvie, for Locke, for Lucio, Starlight Elena, and of course Cecil, of course. But otherwise, when we quickly scan through, I mean, this actually isn't a terrible list on Dark. Water, there's nobody there. Lightning, not enough for me. Earth, nobody. Wind, nobody. Ice, not really. And then fire, this is where the glove teams come in. And those are multi-element, by the way. But when we look at it from that perspective, this is really going to be for those glove teams, because that's a category that we can build easily. I will say that Red Mage is a growing category, and so this might also be really important for people that are going to build that category in the future. But otherwise, that's really a very specific group. So I think you basically should really know if you want to build this, and if you can't say why you're going to build it, then don't pull for this card. The last thing we'll talk about today is going to be her equipment. So when we take a look at her weapons, there's a few choices. The Cobalt gloves are going to give her that magic pen, and you can get these in the Farplane archives. So this is definitely a good choice. I could recommend you build this in the magic version specifically. If we looked at the crit version, it's not really a lot of crit, so you probably wouldn't use this as your source. But if we look at some other options for weapons, the Dark Gloves, because she has already so much Magic Pen and Spirit Pen, then you could just go for this one, which gives you the magic attack, but also the +6 version just has a very high magic stat. If we look at the +6 version for crit, still not that big a deal, and we're not building aim with her anyway, so that's not a huge deal. The Elven Gloves are for the Spirit Penetration, so that's another way that you could go if you wanted to get to 100%. I think that's overkill. Just use Trust Stones. This would definitely be the third choice for gloves for me. But when we look at the critical version, again, not really enough crit rate there for us to use. So what that means is you should choose between the Cobalt Gloves and the Dark Gloves, and you should build the magic type. As for armor, we saw that Ready Player Will was using the Mage Habit because it gives that slash and strike resistance, which are really good for her. So that's definitely a fine choice that you could use. Otherwise, Survival Vest, definitely really good for your equipment. But for accessories, we're probably looking at something like your Jack Frost doll, if you still have that. Or maybe it's going to be you're building dark resistance, so you have something like the Hope Scarf or the Luminous Armlet or whatever it is that you've been building up. Otherwise, 3 stars is another good choice for her if you're running out of AP in guild battle specifically, because this has that decreased AP consumption for her, which she doesn't have any acquired AP up or AP consumption down. So definitely something you could consider. Terra's Ribbon, of course, we can build that right now. Gives her more damage if you build it up, and there's a +6 version in the game right now. Genji Glove, also a good choice. Defense Bracer for the Disable Resist. There's definitely lots of different things that you could build here if you really, really wanted to. And then for TMRs, I really just think that you'll get her something that will try to intercept with her using Soul Regram, or you're just going to lean into something that will give her haste. So for example, Bradley's TMR would be a really good choice. Or maybe you would be looking at Sorrow's TMR, where is it down here, just so you could get some haste instead. Whatever it is, there's a few choices. And we also, we saw Ready Player Well today. Just keep on using his example. He was using Rissel's TMR, which is this one right here. So this is single target, gives you agility and gives you AoE resistance. This is a really good TMR for her because obviously everybody likes agility, but she also has that weakness without that AoE resistance. So this would be pretty solid for her to use and has 5 agility on it. So definitely a good choice. Any TMR that has agility if you want to use it as a stat stick. But yeah, you're going to be wanting to use the TMR ability most likely. That brings us to the end of the video, and we'll talk about now whether or not you should be building Addison Rae. And I think that most players, it's just too good a chance to build a free 100 cost unit that we will get more free light units, and we already have lots of free light units. So it's just easy enough for every player to build her, and she is really good and unique. So definitely worth building if you want to get into it. The big thing here is this Soul Regram and how you can use it. The first 2 effects can be used for any element. She could be mixed in. She could be your your feint so that they don't know, what you're running behind your team, and then you could put it on defense. This could be a way on offense of just enabling some older units or some tanks or some bruisers. But then she has the ability to be mixed in with light evade, with fire evade, or any other evasion team that you'd like to run to enable them to ignore sure hits, especially if our high accuracy units fall out of the meta and people are not building accuracy as much. Then you can always sneak an evade team against them if you are predicting that. But it's just such a good skill, so unique. I think that most players could really build her. The only reason you might not do that is if your light cast is super weak and you don't think you're going to get use out of her, even as a, one of in a team that is not light. You don't have the glove vision cards, for example, to support her. If you're not building her in, a light team, then maybe you wouldn't build her. Or maybe if you're just against her being in the game, you wouldn't build her. But if we're just being objective, yes, she is a good unit. She's going to be worth building, and she's given to us for free. So there is a FFVIIR saving there, even though we are spending FFVIIR to build her and possibly to pull and build her VC. Well, that's going to be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was useful for you. And if it was, you can let me know in the comments down below. And otherwise, I'll see you all soon in another video.